Good day to you, beautiful friends. So, I need to start off full disclosure. My villain arc may have begun, is beginning. I don't know necessarily. All I can tell you is that I'm trying really hard to always strive toward the light. But again, all things are of the light, and I think it's important to honor all aspects of ourselves. And man, oh man, I'm feeling things. I don't know the title for this one. 13 years and 300,000 tears. I am going on my 13th year now. I just celebrated my 13th year in the Midwest. So, cheers to that one. I'm a transplant. I'm from the West Coast originally, and my life path brought me here. It seemed like it was best at that particular point that I was at for another energy that I was connected with. That it would be best for them and for me and my contributions if we perhaps relocated out here. They were from here, and so that was something I was willing to do. And God bless them, they knowing. And they even admitted, like being from the Midwest, they were like, "Man, the Midwest sucks. I don't think that you're going to like it." And me being me, I'm like, I'll make myself like it. By golly, I'm gonna find a way. And I don't necessarily regret it. I don't. But oh my gosh, the Midwest. So I love, as much as there can be some skeevy stuff attached to it, Joss Whedon's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I find it hilarious that there's a Hellmouth in Ohio, in Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm not in the state of Ohio, but it's funny to me, not just because of the way there are certain stereotypes, which I get it, identifiers, but there are stereotypes of Ohio people as well as like Florida people, all types of people, stereotypes of all types of people. We do these things because language. But the Midwest. I tell you what, I have never felt more isolated and alone because there just aren't a lot of people to talk to about higher concepts, faith. Like I went to church yesterday and it was great until it wasn't. It's probably me, honestly. As I even said, it's like my villain arc is beginning. I'm the problem. But there is something in the Midwest with like this alleged niceness that they think they possess that is actually just like this weird passive aggressive, feigned empathy tolerance thing to where they'll just smile and nod, but then potentially like gossip privately. There's just such an air of entitlement, and it's interesting because I unpacked this with one of my friends, and I was like, "Look, am I being the asshole here?" And we admit, like, I get it compared to popular culture, what have you, just the subscribe to mediums, just collective thought. I am being the asshole, and I get it. I am to a certain extent. I'm not trying to deflect from that, but is it assholic? I guess to question some very real things, and I'm going to unpack this topic specifically. People pulling into your driveway. I have a loved one that I care for, and she is now rapidly kind of dwindling into early onset. I shouldn't say early onset dementia. She has moments of, she's mostly present, to be clear. She's mostly present, but it's more of the fact that when she begins to scatter, when she begins to separate and she's not, or when she starts to get agitated and triggered, things can go in multiple directions. And one of those triggers, funnily enough, is just unknown people, unexpected people. Things just take time. They take more time, with infancy and with our elders as they begin to decline. Things can take more time to just expand concepts, I find myself often acting as a bit of a translator. It requires a lot of patience. And I've kind of touched to it in my earlier videos at times. That's already, the P in my name stands for patience. And my name is Yolanda. So It's not there. It's not there. That's one of my struggles. I'm an Aries Mars and an Aries Venus, so I take action like an Aries. For any of you that study astrology and are familiar with Aries, ooh, they are hot, coming in quick, coming in fast. Aries, what? Which is fun because talks around the day we can break down charting and what have you. I'm an Aquarius sun, so truly, literally, I say it's always me versus dark me, and I feel like that's all of us anyway. We can be our own biggest hurdles, but yeah, just because I can be so quick to take action and be animated and be responsive, that's something that the Aquarius sun in me is sort of like, but you understand, it's not just this one thing that you're feeling, and I can oftentimes see my own human nature kind of take over in those particular ways. So being as impatient as I can be, sometimes you have to then be patient and act as translator can be frustrating. But then also more importantly, having, a bleeding heart. I am an HSP, I'm a highly sensitive person, and it is ironic to me that gets pegged as fragility. And it is to a certain extent. There are like loud noises, strong smells, certain things, I tell you, can be my undoing for a minute. They can rock me mentally. But being a person of science, education, all of that jazz, with things like cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness practices, meditation, sitting with my thoughts, learning to sit with my feelings, to identify them, to associate them with the triggers, to sort of, again, try to find hooks to come back in those moments of trigger. I understand firsthand how important these tools are. And I'm always trying to kind of find ways to challenge myself. But as I said, it can always be a bit of a focus for me to have to ground. You see it in my videos, just how easily I can get distracted and get just so impassioned and focused on an idea and then go from there. So, that being said, you're so rude of me, right? Yeah. I'm not necessarily trying to like become YouTube famous. It'd be cool if people like liked and shared and stuff, but that's just because it resonates and it means something to you. I want to know that like we shared a moment and you think, you find something useful in this, but it's not like I'm not trying to like take over the world or anything. But yeah, I needed to like chew that ice and wet my palate and stuff. Sorry, total animal. But we all are. I think it's very easy for human beings to forget that we are the most advanced animal, especially because sometimes we don't really prove it, right? Our inabilities to logic brain, to not consider things, etc. On that note, let me talk about how I'm the asshole. I'm not necessarily trying to not own it, and my progression is I slowly plot twist the Grinch. Yeah, he's a she, and she is me. And I just haven't started like smoking 3 packs a day just yet and continue to look so progressively male, but absolutely me, transplanting to the Midwest. Dementia, loved one. Does not like unexpected visitors. Does not like the driveway. It's starting to get a bit pitted, and we're going to potentially have to consider how we're going to either repave or if we're going to let it go to dirt, etc. And it can wax and wane, and sometimes it's just mild irritation. But I mean, as someone who is already kind of has my own struggles and challenges, to then have to act as a filter or then to diffuse that, it can be very fun. Amongst other things, challenging, stressful, rage-inducing. So it's funnily enough, it happens all of the time. And to be honest, it's rude. It is so disrespectful. As much as it's the smallest thing, it's actually the largest thing. Because if you're the type of person that could so easily dismiss the wear and tear to somebody's private property that you are not contributing to, and to be like, but I'm just one person, but not consider all of the other people. No judgments, just observations. But as far as I'm concerned, no, I don't want to be your friend. No, I don't necessarily want to be closely attached to you. Like, I'm very much live and let live, and I hope one day you find a place of understanding and empathy in your heart. But that is one of the strangest things to me, just how easily people are able to dismiss things or not necessarily think of things. And so just amongst that, that's just, again, one of the energies. Sometimes, and I present all of these different things because sometimes, just depending on the day, sometimes it's great. This person can be like, oh, do we have a visitor? But then sometimes it can be like, who is here? Why are they here? And I can't even bring the energies because if it's not apparent, like I'm not stressed, I'm not angry. Sometimes it can be distressed. Sometimes it can bring on memories of a deceased loved one who, and this deceased loved one was very important to me too. And I don't want to focus on it too much to kind of get into my feelings. So we seem to, as a society, be able to ignore the fact that we're all our own complex little universes, having our own experiences, and to not necessarily think to tread carefully. But I guess, I don't know. What do I know? It's not that deep. Everyone loves to say to me, and I would respectfully say, I love you dearly. I'm sorry that you haven't understood that you're that deep, because you are. It just doesn't hit the same way. In fact, when you're having a day and let's say the grocery store doesn't have your right food, or let's say that somebody cuts you off in traffic, it can be the deepest. And you just want to also have concern and care and validation. And so it's hard because, again, it's in the instance I'm about to unpack, I was caring for the person close to me. Other person, it was definitely a come to Jesus moment. And I understand how perhaps I might be perceived as crazy or what have you. And I guess that's, funnily enough, I'm coming to speak on it. I don't want vindication. I know it can be perceived as very angry, aggressive, assertive, what have you. But that's just, I'm not angry. I'm not mad. But I just want to speak to some truths. So people will often pull into our driveway. And it's been quite an exhaustive day. Not in a bad way by any means, but just filled with doctor's appointments, long waits, lots of energy exhausted for an older person who is sometimes here, sometimes not, and like a grown little person as far as the emotional regulation, conceptual, contextual abilities, communications, all of that stuff. And someone pulls into our driveway. So I'm just kind of looking. And if it's not apparent, I have a very expressive face. So it's not like I'm like, hi. But I'm not flipping them off. I'm just like. And so she rolls her window down. And this person, I don't like to necessarily dox or get too specific if it's not apparent. So the person that then rolls it, what? Can I help you? Already all attitude-y. And I said, no, you already did. You backed out of the driveway. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry. Right away with attitude. And I said, no, you're not. You're not sorry. I was like, you don't consider that you're backing into that? You're just, go ahead, go. And she keeps going on and on. And I'm like, she's like, I hope you have a way better day. I hope your day gets so much better. My day's been fantastic. Thank you. I was like, I hope Jesus touches your heart. Jesus blesses you. And so then she keeps going. And she's just like, I don't understand it. And I said, go away. And then this is where it kind of gets bad. She's just like still screaming. I don't hear. And I'm not necessarily trying to make it like a classist thing, but like she was in her big old truck. And I'm like, yeah, go away, privilege, go away. And so she backs out and finally just leaves and drives off. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm so upset with myself for even letting it get there. But then I'm also like, why is this woman in her audacity coming at me aggressively for giving her a look when she pulled into my driveway with no business in my home? Other than she felt entitled because she pulled on the wrong street and wouldn't just keep driving down public roads. And again, it's not that deep, right? Except it is dangerous when people lack common sense and consideration, point blank period, and a lack of integral structure and character is developed. And the fact that they aren't able to deduce this. It's not my job to parent you in the way that your mommy and daddy should have. Sorry. And it's insane to me. And it's also unfortunate because my neighbor across the street happened to kind of bear witness to this. And funnily enough, it goes full circle because my neighbor across the street, I had a conversation with his mother. He was having a party one day, a welcome party, and his mom just pulled into my driveway, like onto, but actually, like she pulled and parked onto the grass. And I understand it makes me seem like I'm like so bitter, right? Like, what's wrong with you? You must not be happy. I'm incredibly happy. The smallest things can bring me joy. I tell you what, in fact, today I was watching an episode of Orange is the New Black. I once made a joke about being Yolanda, nicknamed Yolanda Ono, because of a musician that I was in some circumstances and dynamics. And cut to actually a scene that comes, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers, but the name Yolanda Ono is used on a fake ID. But what gets even freakier is that this woman has a haircut that I actually rocked. It was my senior year, and it's funny because you will not find a senior picture of me. I totally did not do my senior yearbook picture because I made a regrettable, unfortunate decision. So I graduated high school in 2003, and I, at that point, had very thick, blonde, chunky highlights, and you see this dark mass, right? Not necessarily the best, but I got thick, dark hair. Okay, it's dark. It's horsehair. It's dark. It's dark. There were red tints in it, but at that point, it was just dark. It was like dark brown, almost black looking, and then like like the brassy blonde, thick, chunky highlights. And the character also had this same hairstyle. Like it was the same color, same cut as far as the bob that she had. And I was like, whoa, let's do the time warp indeed. So Carl Jung would say, the synchronicity is I have to take it as a sign that I'm on the right path. Well, I was then. That was earlier in the day. This is now. But it's again just this and I'm not gonna say it's potentially Midwestern, but I will tell you this, when I was in Vegas, it wasn't a concern. California, and I've been around the world, man. I've been everywhere, man. It's I don't know, and I don't just want to inherently be like the Midwest sucks, but it's just even in the ways that when I connect with people, it seems to just I don't mean this to be condemning, but just the superficial. It's everybody wants to be a rock star, and it's that everybody, did you watch this TV show? And what about this? It was just, it's a culture shock. And funnily enough, it's just, funny, laugh, not to cry. I worry, like again, I might be the Grinch, it might be my villain arc, but there are just so many rude things, just even in the supermarket. People not necessarily saying, excuse me. And I feel like a hall monitor gone bad. It's, especially because it happens so much that I honestly, I'm not going to be so bold as to say I think that there's a lot of inherent systemic racism, but I do question it a lot. But then I also wonder, is that just because of who I am and like being a woman of color? But I'll give you a great example. There is a festival that goes on, and it's like a Pioneer Days type festival. And for me, it's incredibly complicated because I am a parent and I had a child out here. I've born a native son to this land, and their parent is also a native son, and like of this land, like from here. And so it's complicated because while very much part of my son's family history and his family tree is in fact the pioneers and the people that settled here, part of his family tree, if you can't tell, I know I am quite literally the alleged American dream, the melting pot. I have quite a bit of ancestry. I've got Asiatic ancestry as well as Native and Indigenous, Hispanic, so I have a good blend in me. But part of his lineage, quite literally, and I say it and I have to laugh and to cry, but God, if we were to take me back in those times, if Doc were to come and we were to go back to the Future time machine, I might be tied to a tree, truly, in kind circumstances. And I don't think that it's hateful or harmful or derogatory to say that. And I don't hold all people of pale persuasion responsible for that. But I don't think that having a festival and not necessarily honoring that, or continuing the festival and not creating more representation, it's one of those ways where we're keeping ourselves very weak and ignorant. Because again, it's a lot of people. That's one of the things I don't necessarily like about the Midwest, where they would tell you that people from like the West Coast. I've spent some time in New York as well, but they'll tell you that people from other areas, we're a slower pace. We're not so direct. We're not so rude. Honest. A way of potentially just dismissing things. And to be clear, this isn't just a critique on the Midwest, because I have met some incredible people out here. In fact, not even one, at least like 3 of the most solid human beings that I have ever met, like some of the best people I have ever met, have come from here. But I've met a lot of other people from here, way more. And in other regions, it's not necessarily such a large or such a small demographic. It might be like 10 solid people per, every 500,000, if you will. And I'm just pulling numbers to be clear. It's not that bad. Because especially it's incredibly ignorant to be like, oh, so you think you know everybody well enough to blah, 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 make that deduction? No, but it's very simple. Patterns. The way that people conduct themselves is the way that they are. Just the way that, for me, people engage with wait staff, with people out that interact in the community. And I'll tell you, because I'm one of those people that, and this is not to toot my own horn, honestly, it's probably super lame if we're going to be honest, or I guess that it's very deviant from so much of societal structures at present. I very much enjoy interacting with service people. I abhor the fact, to be completely honest with you, that we have to involve money. In fact, at this point, I think money is such an insult to all of us as human beings. I think we have acquired enough and gotten to such a point that money only substantiates that we are sick and neurotic in our heads and so pathetic that we need to base ourselves off of these things. We make ourselves so small in our inability to make the best of our circumstances. And this is not to dismiss the people that have, I understand there are certain circumstances, you have no roof over your head, you cannot necessarily see a way to your future. As much as I understand there are things you can do, I understand it's not easy, i.e. you have to eat to survive another day. To someone that isn't as lucky, a displaced person that could be having to rifle through trash, having to solely rely on the good grace of people. And people these days are quite easy to judge and quite quick to judge, not understanding, again, these variables, how they rise and fall. And, you see things like Amazon and workers getting fired, and just with government shutdowns and just everything. We often forget that everything is energy, manifestation. It's just that tangibles or even manifestation of different forms, i.e. the media that we subscribe to. We all love certain things, right? And when we collectively agree and we think that we like these things for the same reasons, we don't, because we perceive them differently. And even if for whatever reason you love Donnie Darko because it helped you appreciate the love and fear sides of the spectrum, your love and fear sides, it doesn't resonate the same. I don't want to go too sideways because I always do. It's my Mercury and Uranus, man. So it's funny, Venus is in my 3rd house, which is the house of communications. I think it's either the 3rd or the 4th. I beg your pardon. I've done astrology for a very long time, but I've been sipping the sauce a little bit. And this is the worst part, I make a point to constantly learn new things. So sometimes retention, it's easier for me and other times, but that is wine. Not that everybody needs to drink. But as I said, I was angrier, and hopefully I've calmed down a little bit since the beginning of the recording. But before I even just get too sideways, we are not thoughtful people. We are not kind. And I'm going to use the royal we because it's also me. In that moment, I was not giving this woman the benefit of the doubt that she was probably, I didn't mean to dox her, but I'm not removing it. It was a woman. I'm not telling you what she looks like. You don't know anything. That's something I struggle with. Anecdotally, and I will probably start speaking more. It's actually out of respect for people that I have loved. I don't want them to necessarily feel personally attacked if by chance, I just making up my new words. If they do, though, if they were to take offense or to think that something were to particularly resonate, and if they were to perhaps be correct that something did resonate, though I am definitely the type of person to where I wouldn't make it specific. So, like, let's say I'm an air sign. I already mentioned I'm an Aquarius sun. Air signs get along with air signs. I've loved Geminis and Libras. So let's say I was aiming toward a particular Libra. I might not necessarily even mention, oh, my Librans, or I might not be like, oh, this person on their birthday, blah, 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 or if that makes sense. Like, I believe anonymity is important and plausible deniability. It can also potentially give people, the people involved, it is a blessing, and it allows them the opportunity to work on their own emotional regulation. Like, if people come at you with things, you don't owe them a response. You don't have to talk to them. You don't have to defend yourself. If bad things are said about you, etc. That's a big one. Like, there's lots of fun stuff that I've heard some very interesting rumors about me, only through people that have actually like gotten to know me. Especially because people call me different things, like just depending on how you're connected with me, etc. And it's not because I introduce myself a certain way. Like, I always introduce myself one way, but other people have known me at different points in my life and might introduce me a certain way. Or I also always kind of encourage people, like, people love to give nicknames. Like, I don't give a fig. If you felt like something resonated and you want to refer to me that name, I don't care. I'm not so egoic. Oh, you must call me by my biblical Christian name. Especially because there are power in words and even how we identify things. But it's actually the power we give them. Especially as someone who has been called pretty much every name you can think of in ways where people have wanted to humiliate, make me feel small, etc. And sometimes I tell you what they do. And those are my biggest regrets, when they catch me slipping. And I let them trigger me, and then maybe I feel the need to defend myself or what have you. But no. Child of the stars in the universe. You are too. And that's part of, I think, just why I'm so disenfranchised. Honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, and I'm glad that we've unpacked this, because it started off as my lamentation, the Midwest is the worst. I think it's the lack of context with just people looking to connect with their spirituality. That's why I don't like the term religious, but it hurts me when people are like, oh, I'm not religious. I'd say I'm spiritual. And everybody says that, but I don't know. And then I feel like a judgy cow, because who am I to judge their spirituality? But I just mean wanting to like explore and talk about these deeper concepts, or then even like challenging ourselves. Like I mentioned going to church yesterday. I go to a metaphysical church. But the really neat thing is that, like, our reverend, you can tell that when she went to divinity school, and not just because she's, like, old. I'm old. I'm preserved really well for being, like, 970-something. Oh, I think I'm making myself younger. 980-something years old, right? Swamp witch, super well preserved. But, no. You can tell that, like, when she studied divinity, you can just tell that as much as she can read certain new books and whatnot, in my humble opinion, in her sermons and in the ways that she teaches, there's a lot of the traditional, more evangelican upbringing and structure, more canonical. And so I often find myself wow, that might be a no truer statement. I've never been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, just to be clear. But I do believe in trying to integrate and honor all aspects of myself. Big fan of Carl Jung. Sorry. As much as I'm willing to chew ice and wet my palate, at least I'm not like a cow. Because if I was eating right now, I'm definitely kind of gross like that. I get it. We talk about labels, and I'm going to go really sideways. And please, if any indigenous people see this, don't come for me. I'm not saying you need to do this, but I personally have chosen to reclaim the word savage with such pride. Like, fuck yeah, I'm savage. Savage as fuck. Because for me, the tangible, just touching and having that extra connection, it just helps to make everything that much more spiritual and holy and sacred and divine for me. I.e., I was going to say, like, me eating. One time on a date, I got cheese in my hair. And even if I weren't on a date, even any other time, just to be, again, 1,000% upfront. So you shouldn't ever feel judged by me or understand. I'm not trying to give you life advice. I'm just trying to share and relate and give you some food for thought and hopefully something in this. God, even if I'm just going to exist just a patron saint of dumpster fires and serve as an example of like what not to be, then you're welcome. Not that you owe me anything, but it's my gift of love for you because I believe we can always do something. Hopefully I made you laugh. Hopefully I made you think. Shit, even if I made you mad and then you had to breathe through it and you're still watching, thank you. Thank you for joining me and blessing you and or blessing me with the pleasure of your company. Dang it. I've been doing so well and holding it all together, and then I just lost my point. It's the go-go juice. Oh, Savage. Savage is F. Tactile. I've already sworn I've blown that. When they ask if this video is made for kids, I'm going to say no. I always say no, and it's not that they're not, to be honest. I've parented. I parent weirdly, so it's technically parents should be able to speak about these things to their kids, I guess. I don't know. I digress. But, just even with a son of a motherless goat, Savage, Tactile, I love the tangible experience. So one time on a date, and really just insert any time, honestly, if I, well, because I'm animated, if it's on a parent, bajiggity. And when I'm trying to eat, sometimes I can get animated if I'm telling a story, what have you. And I got cheese in my hair. And it was good cheese. It was really good cheese. So you better believe that I was like, and not like grossly. If I recall, if memory serves. I don't know. I might have just put it on my finger and then licked it. I might have tried to be more civilized and ladylike. But yeah, I don't necessarily mind being considered savage. Because there's something in that. I don't know, like the phoenix arising. In the fact that I'm able to balance my nature and not necessarily run away from these strange things or to shame myself. I often think about that, like as a person of faith, like truly, like I love Jesus, I'm a Christian, amongst other things, labels, but in the way that Christianity, because again, that's another thing, natives, please don't come for me, I know, it's not that I believe in, you know, in source and you know, motherfucker God and, you know, the thunder beings, and I believe in like all of our teachings, and, you know, I believe in creator, but I believe that because creator is creator of all things, I don't necessarily reject Christianity. I don't actually reject any sort of faith. Much like a Baha'ist or even a pantheist, I call me crazy. It's all made of God. God matter, God source, God light. And it's on me to kind of, oh, I hate that. I'm going to stop because I feel like sometimes it gets corny, and I've actually spoken to it at certain points, and it's very strange, to be completely honest with you, because I grew up with so many religious upbringings and influence, heavy Mormonism being amongst them. And I have definitely at certain points in my journey been one of those people where like the people that are so comfortable in their faith, like, and I feel bad for that. I'm like, I'm sorry to some of you guys, just different missionaries and whatnot. It was almost like affronting to me, if that makes sense. And this is how actually it came actually to help me reconnect with God in certain ways, in so many ways. Like God was always there. It was just kind of me. And that's even what helped me realize that and to change my views on so many things. It's so great to incorporate new data and to kind of grow and learn and change. And to anyone that would tell you like, oh, I can't change, I would say, God love you, you sweet, sweet thing. You are changing every day. You are. And I hope that you begin to see and understand the connections and the control that you have over it if you want to exercise it. That's a great example. Like 8-ish, 9-ish years ago at this point now, I was very pro capital punishment. Nowadays, I am one of those bleeding heart hippies, and I want to believe I would just gently lay down, but I have a lot of trauma and abuse in my background. Not that I'm trying to trauma dump, and I can't know that I wouldn't eventually potentially throw hands. In fact, I know more than likely, eventually, at some point, I might snap and throw. Like, I couldn't just like lay there and be a victim. But I do know that I understand the value and sanctity of life now in a much different way, and I understand the ways that we can exercise responsibility and control and constraint, and the knowledge and education that can be gleaned. But man, I always go too far. These things happen. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that we are able to change and what have you. And see, this is great because again, I bet this woman that I had this incident with would probably be like this crazy blah blah. And I might look crazy. I might seem angry. And I talked about it. I'm mad. I'm still. It bothers me. Injustice. It bothers me. Entitlement bothers me. And I think that's kind of one of the things. Not to, again, specifically Midwest. I can only speak to my recent surroundings, and I often, not my recent 13 years, 300,000 tears, just these experiences. I try to travel as much as I'm able, and I definitely try to be the change I want to see. But I touched on just the not inherently, like the fear of the potential as being racist, and it's, again, I need to be very clear. I'm not trying to start any race wars. I'm not trying to make it that case. I'm trying to say that a lot of times I think that, and people of darker color than me, people of more melanin will tell you, the ways that being a person of color and your responses can be seen as like aggressive, assertive, antagonistic, because it's quite literally part of a cultural upbringing. It can be very disconcerting. And that's kind of, I guess, the racism that I would speak to. If just to be clear, because it's, again, I don't think it's hate. I think it's an awareness of difference without being consciously aware and realizing there's an awareness. It's kind of in the way that certain people of color would tell you, like, oh, when you walk past maybe a paler person, they might try to grab your bag, or when they might grab their bag, and it makes you feel like, wow, profiled. There we go. But one thing I'd wanted to speak to originally and then got so sidetracked was just despising money and just all of that, dealing with service people, so to speak. I try to definitely honor the human before the resource. In fact, one of my pet peeves, just regardless of region, is how you treat wait staff. That's actually one of my key trust indicators, not to go too sideways. If you can't have a conversation and keep a conversation going with your wait staff, and I get it, time is of a constraint, but again, this is where we are encouraging people to be their best selves, because it should still be in service to be like, I appreciate you trying to have a moment. Can I just take your order? Can we make this more of a business? We're all helping each other be better people, and how, if we choose to, and how we conduct ourselves. But I'm the kind of person to where I'm not just like, oh, can I get a blah 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 blah, and whether it's a sit down meal, whether it's McDonald's, whether it's anything. If I'm at a gas station, are you having a good day? How are you today? This is not for kudos. This is not gold stars. In fact, honestly, I don't think I'm a better person. Nothing of that nature. This is just to speak on the way that I exist as food for thought for people to reflect on. But for me, it is in that ability to not treat somebody like a human first versus a resource. It's that weird internal justification of well, I'm paying them, so I can treat them like crap. Which is so ironic, because kind of going sideways or going full circle back to the, am I the asshole? Yes, I am, but not necessarily. In my privilege, we have lawn people, and they come and they cut our grass for us. We do support a local business and help them they do our lawn service. My lawn people do not even pull into my driveway. And I pay them money. And they provide a service for me because they are kind and they are considerate. I will reflect that they don't seem native to my region. When I put it at that, they do not look like typical Midwesterners, if I'm not clear. And I wonder if it's just manners and entitlement, not to be like, oh, again, the Midwest sucks. It sucks. Don't come here. No, this is just a loving, conscious call-in. I mean, all of humanity sucks. What are we even doing? I suck. You suck. But we have room to change because everything can't be perfect anyway. Even if we want to change, why do we need to change? It's kind of a talk for another day. But just even in that, we need to begin to understand, if we haven't already, taking criticism, taking reflection, just holding space for negative things actually helps to make us stronger, because it's not the be all end all. And it isn't necessarily condemnation if someone is speaking on negative things, negative concepts, negative constructs, to not inherently perceive us at our best. It is incredibly fragile and small in the ego. And it does, I'm trying to let go of this altercation, but again, this woman that pulls into the driveway is allegedly sorry, but is only so sorry that then she is looking to say something to me the minute that she sees the reaction on my face. Is she entitled? Am I just seeing it that way? And I want to go full circle because I gave a shout out to my friend, because this isn't the first time an instance like this has happened. Many times it has. And she was like, well, I pull into people's driveways. And this is why she's my friend and I love her. Because she was like, I said, well, you're kind of evil and inconsiderate. That's okay. It's not the worst evil. You're not eating babies or anything, doing anything weird like that. And she goes, thank you. I love you too. And I said, I love you. Thank you for being able to just take my observation and the truth and understand that and realize I don't think you're like the biggest piece of garbage ever, and own it and not try to tell me I'm wrong and just hold space at the very real truth that it's incredibly inconsiderate and yada yada and a million and one things. Not try to deflect it, just hold my truth. And honestly, I've learned a lot from her. And it's really funny, and I give you a shout out, my Leo. I'm not trying to dox, but Leos, and I know that she loves the attention. I might even actually just send you this video and be like, haha, Splinter Cell, look for the moment I tag you, I mention you. I won't do that because I feel like that, again, that's like a power and control thing, but like the least. Everything is a spectrum. And that might actually be my next content video. I'm at a place now to where fortunately I can start making more content. Though it's such a struggle because I feel like it's such grandiose narcissism, just because I see things a certain way, or just because I feel like what I have to share is beneficial, doesn't mean I should. But I believe this. I believe it's not actually about me, funnily enough. It's actually about everybody else. It's about the fact that we all have such inherent value. And it isn't even necessarily about the dollar bucks we can make. It's just that we, in our stories, in our lessons, just in our observations, the way that we see things, we are all just helping each other grow and learn and be our best selves. And heck, 3i Atlas, all this spells the world could end. And I don't want to fearmonger, and I don't want to, constantly talk about how awful things are. Even though, funnily enough, I came on here to talk in a particular moment and kind of purge some pain and feel some feelings. I shouldn't say purge some pain because I wasn't hurt, but I was a little bit frustrated. And as you know, like I said, my villain arc might begin. I have noticed as I get older, I feel so wrong for this world. I always have, to be honest with you. I learned to read from the book of Genesis when I was like 4, like 4 or 5, if memory serves. A family member taught me, and this family member, God love them, I still have wonderfully loving flashbacks to them trying to teach me to read. How do you spell art? No! Art! In the most aggressive way ever. But always just feeling wrong. As a child, when I would, with the adults, what are you going to do when you grow up in this world? I want to spread love and joy. That's so stupid. You can't do that. You can't pay your bills. And screw you, rude, evil assholes, for hurting a child like that. And I get it. It's pragmatic, but there are different ways. That's fantastic. Have you thought of like what way you want to spread love? Like dog grooming? Pizza making? It's how we do what we do is so integral of the type of people we are. So, i.e., again, service people. If you can't just take a moment to engage with your person, if you just don't have time, etc., I don't know. You're not the worst, but maybe put off something like that to when you have time, or find a way to challenge yourself to show up in a shortened version, but just to be a little more present, to be a little more mindful. And the only reason I even speak to these things is because, yet again, funnily enough, as someone being perceived as having just problems and issues with everything, or being so easily affronted. I mentioned being an HSP, and it's very true, especially because of my background. And if you were to go back into some of my videos, this, as far as I see it, this perception, this frame of mind, this ability to understand and see multiple facets, to kind of de-stress and kind of calm down, it's life-saving, it's life-changing. I had a lot of trauma in my background, and I think that it's very easy for me, if I wanted to be angry about so much. And we look at things like antisocial personality disorder or just social deviance and whatnot. And I kind of laugh, to be honest, like Schopenhauer, even Diogenes the Cynic, and how just, the nihilism and the bitter type viewpoints. I don't know if it's because I'm a girl and it's a female thing or what. I'm really grateful for it, because as much as I don't agree with the way that we do things, I love the fact that I can focus on the hope for humanity and just the ways that we can change. I love that because I have experienced pain and different types of dynamics, I still have that capacity to grow and love and to change. And I love that as much as it's difficult, sometimes it's hard it's hard while you're doing it to, work toward these things. I.e., some of the people that have hurt me, they're still people. And even if they meant to, and even if they cared about it, they're hurting more than I am, because I'm still not the kind of person that just wants to actively hurt people. And it's hard to understand that, like, that is a certain kind of deficit, if you will. And I'm not saying my way's right. I'm not saying this is the energy even to kind of channel in with you. Just